Part 2. Descending the Psychedelic. Chapter 6. The beatings at home continued. When Shaw couldn't get to me, he went for my cats. I'd taken to barricading myself in my room. I never came out. Every time I left my room, I was mocked and ridiculed, threatened, or downright beaten. That year, my father accommodated a request I made. He built a cat door for my room. The cat door allowed the cats to pass in and out of my room via the closet, without my ever having to open my door. It meant my cats could run from my half-brother and escape without my having to risk a beating myself. I kept a cat box in my room with food and water at all times. The cats quickly learned that my room was safe. They weren't the only ones. I also learned that lesson well. "Open the damn door!" Sean shouted, and punched the door. I was throwing all my weight against the door. "Open the goddamn fucking door!" He kicked the door and fought. His hand on the knob, I held it tight. If he turned the knob before I could get it locked, he'd be in. I searched my room for a barricade. My dresser. I could move my dresser, but first I needed to lock the door. His fists beat the door, and I braced myself against the impact. The moment his hand released the handle, I could turn the lock, but one of us had to give first. One of us had to be faster than the other. He kicked the door, and I lost my grip, re-secured my hold, and waited. Another punch to the door, then another. My palms were sweating. My hands were slipping. I couldn't stop shaking, but I had to keep myself together. I couldn't fall apart, not until the door was locked and barricaded. "Open the goddamn fucking door, bitch!" He punched the door with both fists. Click. I turned the lock in place and released the knob. He rattled the handle. I wasted no time. He could pick that lock once he had a knife from the kitchen. I got behind my dresser and shoved. I shoved with all my might and moved it 2 feet in front of the door. He would pick the lock, but the barricade was all I needed to keep him from opening the door. He kicked and screamed on the other side. There was a moment of silence when he was back. Within seconds, he had the door unlocked. He turned the knob and the door hit my dresser. "I'm gonna fucking kill you!" he screamed. "I'm fucking kill you!" I ran to the other end of my room, as far from him as I could go. I considered jumping out my window and running, but then I would have to go back through the house to get in, and I had just barricaded the door. No, I had to stay in the room and listen. He rattled the knob. He punched and kicked the door. He screamed, "I'm gonna fucking kill you!" I slipped under my desk and hugged my knees to my chest. His screaming continued as he slammed the door into my dresser. Shaking, I huddled under the desk. I couldn't stop shaking. "I'll fucking kill you," he said. "I'll kill you!" I rocked and held my knees. I sobbed quietly. If he heard me, he would mock me. I held my head, wishing the screaming would stop. I wanted to die and wished for death. "You fucking bitch!" Sean screamed. "Goddamn, open the fucking door!" A spider was there in the corner of my desk. I jumped and every inch of my body trembled while I weighed my options. Stay with the arachnid or risk my half-brother. I sobbed and screamed into my knees while the spider crawled onto my hand. "I'll fucking kill you!" The spider inched its way back to me. I couldn't leave my room. I couldn't get away. I rocked and screamed in my knees. I bit my knees and tried to breathe. The spider wouldn't hurt me, but my half-brother would kill me. Regardless, it crawled up my arm and my body went still. I stopped shaking and slipped into the depths of my mind, where everything was silent. The tunnel was dark and deep. I fell, sliding on the walls of black glass. My foot touched down on the charcoal gray floor, and I stood in the room where silence is born. The room was barren, save for a set of black doors. Here, wherever I was safe. I was calm. Here there was peace. I approached the doors and turned the knob. A happy light greeted me. A breeze grazed my legs, and I stepped into the room composed of white marble and light. The doors behind me closed. 2 cat statues carved out of black onyx flanked the door. To my right and in front of me, a fountain of water fell from the ceiling into a pool large enough to bathe in. To my left, a bed made over in Egyptian silk welcomed me if I wished to sleep. Another fresh breeze rolled over the floor and up my legs, drawing my attention directly ahead to an archway trimmed in gossamer. Sunlight poured into the room. I shifted my weight and saw beyond the light. A vast marble balcony opened up to the forest of green. I could smell the fresh scent of water falling just like in my gorge. I could smell the fresh earth and the life in the grass and the trees. I could hear the birds sing, the thunder of waterfalls, and the soft mew of cats. I looked at the bed and saw my cats. Some were on the floor gnawing a ball of string. Others had curled up in the pillow sleeping. They were safe. Here, wherever I was, everyone was safe. I walked out to the balcony and gazed over the forest. It was wild and old. A giant waterfall roared as it tumbled over a cliff into a ravine overgrown with the edge of the forest. The waterfall had formed a vast pool of water as black as it was deep. I pulled myself up onto the marble banister and found my center, just like my gorge in the glen. I let the winds blow through me. I drew in a deep breath, and releasing the last of my worries, I jumped. I flew the 40 feet down, and when I hit the water, the cold slid over me like a soft blanket. Beneath the water I wallowed and washed away the fear, the screams, and the bruises. Here I had no pain, no danger. Here, wherever here was, I was alone, completely alone and safe. It was here that I found my peace. I swam for a moment, or an hour, time did not exist there, before finding a shallow ledge. I pulled myself from the water, combed my hair back with my fingers, and raised my face to the sun. It was a warm day, and when a gentle wind blew, it felt good. Not uncomfortable as one would expect. I breathed deep the summer breeze, and I smiled. From where I stood, I could see a trail that led up and away from the pool. The trail beckoned to me, and I followed while singing a random ditty of my own composing. I wandered the forest for hours, soaking in the warm sun and the bird song. If day passed slow here or at all, I did not sense it. I followed the trail, then wandered about on my own, paying no mind to much of anything until I found a shallow stream that flowed through the wood. I walked the stream, splashed across the water while giggling, and meandered about on the bank. The day wore on, and the clouds moved in. The winds picked up with a cold bite. The chill was a refreshing change. After a few moments, I had adapted to the cold and welcomed it. I took in every sight, every sound, and delighted in the wood where I was safe. I followed the stream until the forest thinned and entered a small clearing where wild grasses grew. There I found a small cottage. It looked centuries old and was built by whitewashed stone. I could see the pile of wood and the rusted axes where a farmer or huntsman perhaps had left it. I could see a chimney that once burned with the warmth of a fire. As if frozen in time, I could see where laughter came to this cottage and ended, and now the forest had grown up around it, encasing the domicile in a preserved state where it waited to be found by me. I approached the cottage and located the red door beneath ivy and moss that had grown up over the handle. I turned the knob, pushed open the door, and stepped into the darkness where all at once the world went away, and I was back in my room beneath my desk. I blinked and stared at the underside of my desk. The spider, the screaming, and my half-brother were gone. My room was dark. I crawled out from under my desk and, still on my hands and knees, poked my head around the desk, just enough to see the window. Night had fallen hours ago. Within that time, no one had noticed. No one had come. No one had cared. My dresser was still in front of my door where I had left it. My legs were stiff. My face was raw from the stale tears dried to my face. My kitten mewed beside me. I picked her up from the floor, crawled back under my desk where I pulled her into my lap, and quietly sobbed myself to sleep.